Morning, Rob.
Good
Morning.
morning.
Morning, Michael.
All right, we're all ready to go.
Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Economic Development Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town website at www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner by finding the meeting at www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of the members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceeding as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay, so I'm calling the Economic Development Committee meeting on Friday, June 4th, 2021 to order at 8:18. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. There we go. Since I missed a bunch of stuff, I apologize again. I really have no report to give for anything. So members, I got a status on proposed downtown district zoning bylaw. Julie?
Sure. Yeah. So I think the big development there is that we've been in touch with Adam Costa, and Judy Barrett's been weighing in as well. There were, I think, about 10 questions that we saw as outstanding that we wanted guidance on. So Marika forwarded about a week ago, last Thursday, she forwarded, and I think we also got it, or at least I don't know if everyone got it the week before, but basically Adam Costa's answers to those 10 questions or so. He gave some really detailed and thorough responses. So I think our next step is on Monday, June 7th at 6 o'clock. We are having a joint meeting with the Planning Board and Board of Selectmen. We're invited to be there. Adam Costa will be there to answer questions of the Planning Board directly. And I'm really hoping that, I think we've been most successful when we've gotten everybody on the same Zoom together. And been able to, I think things have progressed well. People have found common ground. People have been very cordial and, willing to work together. So now that we're hopefully down to this narrow list of issues and questions, and having Adam available to the Planning Board to follow up with any, he gave pretty thorough and detailed responses, I think, but available in real time to follow up. I think that's a great next step. And then I think after that, we will, what I would like to see is I'd like to see each of the three committees take a vote on whether, obviously we can only control what we do, but take a vote on, whether, how we want to move forward, and hopefully be in substantial agreement on on a bylaw that each committee will hopefully support. And if they don't, well, I think we're going to move forward anyway. But that's sort of the next step here. That's the plan for moving forward on the zoning bylaw. And I think it's going to take. We don't know exactly. I don't think we know anyway when fall town meeting is going to be. Most likely, I'd imagine end of September or early October. And I think it's going to take a pretty concerted effort on all of our parts to be talking, I think we might want to spend some time at the transfer station. We might want to, the Board of Selectmen has said they'd be interested in continuing to hold joint forums with us to answer questions from the community. And, at the end of the day, it's just going to be getting people there to vote for it. If it's a bylaw that we support, which, at this point, I assume we will. There's not much that's controversial in there that I would say I wouldn't support the bylaw over. So, and I think we've been pretty consistent with that through this process. So, so it's just going to be a get out the vote game in the fall. But I definitely encourage everyone before Monday's meeting to kind of if you have a few minutes, it looks more intimidating than it actually is. It's 16 single space pages is what it starts to look like when you open the email, when you open the document, but it's pretty, there's some attachments and things. So but it does provide a lot of background for sort of the issues that are still open or the concerns that some members of the community or the planning board have had. So I encourage everyone to kind of familiarize yourself with that beforehand. Those are the kind of questions we're going to be seeing from the public too. We want to be able to be well versed on, why we made the decisions that we made, because we're going to have to kind of be, I think, the ambassadors for this project.
So who's sending out the document for us to?
What document? The bylaw?
Yeah.
We can recirculate the most recent version of the bylaw before the meeting. That's a good idea.
And then
along with Adam's notes.
Where's the meeting Monday?
Right here.
Zoom? Is it going to be Zoom?
I believe so. I think it's virtual. I haven't heard of it.
Sorry.
Julie, what are the biggest sticking points still? Is it still the FAR versus the area?
Yeah, there were, FAR is certainly one of them. We're still, it's still not firmly established, and there's a lot of narrative on it that I need to dive into about what the threshold for voting is going to be.
Thank you.
Whether it's going to be a 2/3 or a, just simple 50% majority. So, that's one of the issues that's out there. Again, that affects how we vote on the bylaw. That's not the substance of the bylaw. The zoning map is still one of the open issues.
The zoning map, Marika has talked to 6 of the 7 split lot owners, and they don't want to change them, is what I understand. And I saw that Lisa sent out a letter, Marika drafted a letter, or Lisa drafted a letter to go out to the split lot owners talking about forums and things. So that should be pretty well resolved eventually.
I think that's right. Yeah, Marika's done an awesome job of connecting with people and just letting them know what's going on. The Board of Selectmen is still planning on sending a formal communication and allowing people to share their thoughts. I think it's important that,
Absolutely.
I think Marika, being able to speak to people that she knows about this is wonderful and very helpful, but I think it's different to have official communication from the Board of Selectmen, which I think they intend to do, just to,
And the forums.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I just jump in? Sorry, real quickly. Yeah. I was a little bit confused about the joint meeting that Lisa actually mentioned, because it was, I know the planning board posted their meeting. It wasn't called a joint meeting. I reached out to Lisa and she actually explained to me that basically it's a way for the planning board to have access to Adam Costa to address their, I guess, 9 out of their 10 issues that Adam Costa addressed actually in written form in that email that was circulated, and to just kind of hash that out. And then he has 1 hour, so he'll be there from 6 to 7 to basically talk to them. She said that Board of Selectmen and EDC were welcome to be present, but that they're not, it's not an active participation by the EDC. So I didn't post a meeting because I didn't think it was a joint meeting in the sense of that word. And then after the planning board meeting, Lisa said the idea is that then they'll have a better idea of what issues are still outstanding, what issues the planning board still has with this bylaw, and to determine if Judy Barrett needs to be called in as well, because the FAR and the lot coverage, that's a Judy Barrett question. And even some of, I think 1 or 2 of the other issues, Adam kind of referred to Judy Barrett's earlier comments on that. So I think after this planning board meeting, the question is still who's going to write the next draft bylaw, because again, that's Judy's work. And I think then there should be a real joint meeting with Board of Selectmen, Planning Board, EDC, SHOPC to go over the final draft and hash out maybe lot coverage or height, those kinds of content issues. So that's my understanding of what's happening right now.
So do you want us all to show up Monday for the meeting?
No, because I didn't post it. So if Julie and John could make it, I'll try to be there. But I think again, it's not. You can view it later. It's not, you're not required to actively participate because it's mostly the planning board getting information from Adam Costa.
Thank you for the clarification. That makes sense. That that's you're right. It is I agree that it's sort of the planning board's opportunity to have access to Adam directly. And I guess while he only his time is very limited, that makes sense for us not to be intervening, for them to be able to speak to him directly.
So Marika and Julie, or is anybody planning to go? I mean, would you like us to be there despite that it isn't an official meeting?
No, Chris, I think we would have issues with quorum and open meeting if we have more than 4 at that meeting. And as residents, we could participate, but the problem is all it takes is someone to say there are 4 members of the EDC there, open meeting violation, and then,
But I'm not sure, but so we couldn't even attend on our own if we were disinterested?
We just can't vote on anything or discuss it as a committee.
Yeah. And then if you were given the opportunity to speak, you had just clearly state that you're speaking on your own behalf and not on behalf of the EDC. Yeah,
because I was at a joint meeting with Capital and Shopsy last night, and there was the selectmen online, and they attended. They just didn't discuss anything. So I think we should be all set. We just got to be careful not to discuss it amongst ourselves or take any type of a stand or vote. I'll check into it, make sure what we can and can't do, but I think it's fine. We just can't discuss as a committee anything or take a stand on anything or any type of a vote.
Claire has her hand raised. Claire, you want to speak, or John, you want to let me?
But I don't see your hand raised.
No, I can't. I don't have a hand to raise.
Oh.
Down.
It's in the chat.
Oh, that's why I see your little text, raising my hand. Okay.
There you go. Because I don't have the little thing to raise my hand. 2 things, folks. One, since this is a planning board meeting on the 7th, why have they not listed it as a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen? This is it doesn't have anything to do with EDC. This is a potential OML, violation. Okay.
I don't think it's a joint meeting with the selectmen, though. I don't think all the selectmen
John, the selectmen posted it as a joint meeting with the planning board. That's one question. The second question is, neither the Board of Selectmen nor the planning board have posted any documents that will be discussed. The 16-page response from Adam is a whole collection of just emails that have been sent from somebody else from the firm. From a resident standpoint, from a clarity standpoint, there should be a list of the 10 questions that are still outstanding. That does not exist, or I haven't received it. The second thing is that I am assuming, only because I haven't gotten any other information, that it is final version 8 that is going to be reviewed. That's all I'm going to say. But from a management standpoint of this is pretty sloppy.
I mean, it's not our meeting.
By the way, exactly.
So,
it isn't the EDC's fault.
And a lot of the questions are just, clarifying definitions of things. I mean, there's the one piece that, the lot coverage limit, Lisa is actually not having Adam address at this meeting because that's sort of a technical one that we as a town have to decide what we want to do about. So, I mean, a lot of the points that are even on there are I don't want to say minor, but they're just kind of clean up, making sure defined terms are, consistent. There's some questions about the triggers for major site plan review and the threshold amounts, which I think he answered pretty well. So I'm not that your points are well taken, but it's not, it'd be lovely to have a well spelled out agenda, but that's not our purview. So, they'll just go through the questions, I imagine, and have access to Adam to follow up. And hopefully that will knock out most of them. And then we can come together, hopefully jointly, with all the committees and see what's left and come together and put together a hopefully final version.
Just one comment though. I don't think they're minor issues. I tend to agree because these issues were brought up. I mean, I can't even, I think it's more than 3 months now, and it's held up the whole process, and it's a reason for the planning board not to support this. So I think it's pretty, it's not that minor, but hopefully Adam Costa, I mean, he addressed all those issues that the planning board brought forward in a written document that was circulated, I guess, 3 times. Last time was like 2 weeks ago. And Monday they will be discussing it. So I think that's what's happening. I mean, I don't think they're minor issues, because then we would have been much further ahead in the process by now.
I also have I have concerns as well based upon Adam's responses. This is a mixed use change to that downtown district overlay, new written document, all of that stuff. Adam's position is that everything that isn't tied to housing still falls back to a threshold of a 2/3 vote versus simple majority. And so if we're voting as a single zoning article, it's a 2/3 vote. And I have been through municipalities to try to get a 2/3 vote. It is very, very difficult. It's very difficult. So I think what we need to do is, if we are following Adam's lead and this is a 2/3 vote, we might have to capitulate on certain things in order to garner that support. Because if we go in with something that can't get a 2/3 vote, we would have spent almost 3 years writing zoning to get economic development and housing in that location, and we're going to fail. 2/3 vote is really, really tough. And that's one of my key concerns based upon Adam's write-up.
Agreed.
So how do we deal with that, Rob? What do we do differently?
Well, I don't want to take us back to square one, because there are different uses and things that can have sustainable economic development benefits within that zoning. But they are, as Adam says, outside of the purview. If you say we want to add housing in the downtown district, that is a simple majority. But according to Adam's interpretation, if we say the height now goes from 35 feet to 40 feet, he says that because that applies to all uses in the area, not just housing, that is a 2/3 vote. That's part of the overall zoning change that we're doing. It may be that we have to go back to square one and say, okay, to get the simple majority vote, we're just adding the mixed use zoning language as an approved use in the downtown, and vote simply on that, in addition to the overall mixed use zoning for the district. So we get the mixed use allowance with a simple majority, and then the everything else with the 2/3 vote. That's just my interpretation of it. And like I said, given the fact that I've gone through lots of town meetings, a 2/3 vote is very difficult. And I guess I would point people to how getting a controversial article passed at this past town meeting for the church using CPA funds. That was a simple majority, and it was very controversial. So that passed, but if they had to get a 2/3 vote, it wouldn't. So once again, I have concerns with that vote level.
Didn't Adam also say that just changing the name of the district, changing the name of anything down there, that changes everything over to a 2/3 vote as well. So it's not just the housing aspect of it. There's a bunch of different things to this.
I'm not a lawyer. I'm thinking he is taking a very narrow view of this. And one could argue that the major change to the zoning is just the housing element. That's really the only thing that comes through, along with a couple other cleanups to make it sustainable. His concern is that if someone takes it to the Attorney General's office, he might lose if he takes a position. So if he is overly conservative in his interpretation, he will not lose in front of the AG's office. That's just kind of my feeling. So, like I said.
So what do you think some of the concessions would need to make on this to get it through, even at 2/3 would be? I think the biggest thing would be like the height of the buildings, the size.
And the question would then become, if you do make those concessions and we work with the planning board, is that still enough to get that 2/3 vote?
Well, if we don't have the planning board on board with this, I think it'd be even hard to get a majority vote.
Right.
So I started measuring some of the buildings, and because we were going to go up to where the special permit was, at 45 feet was initially we wanted to go to.
Yeah.
That's pretty big for down there, in the major downtown. Maybe not so much down behind Park Street, but the abutters and stakeholders down there may disagree. But I measured Madison Place. I went up there, and their 3-story to peak was 40 feet, according to my app, and then my app crapped out. So I mean, just to give you a scale of how tall 40 feet actually is. But I tried to go measure the back of the community house, with the back driveway from the stone foundation up, and that was roughly, I think, 38.5. So that doesn't look obtrusive that way, So I think it all comes down to how they figure out the FAR or the size of the building, or how they want to do that. And other than that, I don't know what the other real contentious parts are.
I don't know either, but
hopefully we'll find out Monday.
Yeah, exactly. Because the planning board should be following the goals identified in the master plan. The previous master plan, which is over 10 years old, said get mixed use in the downtown. But you just don't want to throw mixed use in the downtown without sustainability. And a little bit of mixed use and a little bit of density adds to that sustainability.
Absolutely.
If they're not willing to concede and go for those goals of the master plan and support it, especially if we need the 2/3 vote, it's going to be so difficult that I am extremely concerned. So I just, that's one thing that after I read Adam's document was kind of knocking around in my brain. And so concessions, collaboration, getting the planning board, to say thumbs up would go a long way towards that 2/3 vote if we really need it.
I think if we can get the collaboration of planning board, which I hope we can, that's ideal, Board of Selectmen, advisory, and then we really just need, it's a grassroots effort, just like Julie was saying, going down the transfer station, reaching out to everybody. That's why I'm hoping this document will be done by mid-August. That way it gives us a couple of months to go down.
Does the planning board really have any interest in planning, in passing anything?
I'm not on the board, and I don't know. I would think so. I would hope so. But we'll find out what the biggest disagreements are on Monday and go from there. And then, once we get a document done, we're going to just have to educate everybody and try to get as many people that agree with it to town meeting. I know I keep beating a dead horse with this, but that's what we did with public safety. Right up until that meeting, the town meeting, I thought we were failing. you know, because I didn't hear anybody, any proponents going up to the mic, and it was like, wow, we just wasted 2 years, and we got up there and it passed overwhelmingly. So hopefully we can do the same thing with this. As long as we have everybody on board or even close to it, I think we can do fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously I'm concerned in that we've all put so much time, blood, sweat, and tears, and literally years into this. And a 2/3 is a significant threshold, but you know, I really think we just need to keep linking it to what the majority of the town said they wanted, what the master plan said we should do, what we've spent literally tens and tens of thousands of dollars on studies to conclude that we should do. And let's not lose the forest for the trees, which is why, I'm willing to, John, you mentioned the height. We've talked about that a few times. I'm okay personally going down to 40 feet. That's fine. I think that's sufficient for our purposes. And, if there are other issues that are like that too, I'm willing to work together to come to what's reasonable and what works. But we just need to let people know that all these changes that they want, that they've said that they wanted to see, none of that can happen without this first piece in place. And we've put a lot of time and effort and resources into coming up with something that will lay the groundwork for that. So it's just a matter of making people understand that, helping people understand that, answering their questions, and getting people to show up.
Like in the words of Al Hamilton, you got to get people out there to vote. If you want to get something done, talk to your friends, get people out to vote. So Once we get something together, I'm sure we can do that.
Yeah. And that being said, I'm pretty glad that this didn't end up on Springtown meeting because it was pretty dismal.
Yeah. Rob, I didn't even know you were sitting in front of me at town meeting until you left. But all right, do we have any more on the downtown district? Just because we got about another 45 minutes and a little bit more to cover.
Yeah, I'm going to have to cut off in a minute. I'm going to turn off my video and listen in on the call and chime in as I can. And if we need to vote, let me know. But I'm going to have to shut down.
I think we have a quorum even if you can't vote. But the only thing we really have to vote on is the EDC newsletter.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Thanks,
I would just want to say, John, I fully agree with you. The education part of the public safety building was such a big deal. And I think if we get to the point where we're saying at the transfer station, we've got to have something that's a bullet point handout, 1 page, easy to read. We can tell them everything at the transfer station, but we've got to leave them with something that they can look at and hold on to that's just dummy proof.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It was the education part of the public safety that clearly laid it out for everybody. And I think we have to do the same thing, just clearly put it out what it is.
What was nice when we did it at the transfer station for public safety too, is we had the opposition right there, and they were great. I met a lot of great people that didn't agree with it, but we wound up working through it, and they were there. So I think the more education the public can get, good or bad, will help us. So look forward to it.
I think Claire wanted to comment, and otherwise, I don't know.
Just one quick thing, Mr. Chair, if I could. I totally agree with what Rob said. We need to go back to where we were April 2019, where we said we wanted to add mixed use housing, period. And that would give you your 50%. Can't stress that enough.
You're on mute, John.
Yeah. Then we have to, but then once it's all the definitions of putting the mixed use in, that was all the problem. And into this whole thing.
It's a delay tactic.
Well,
come on.
Enough clip. We'll deal with, let's see what goes on Monday, and then we'll have a follow-up after that. But I agree, but we'll see who knows where we'll be on Monday after the joint meeting. So moving on, any more on the downtown bylaw? No? All right, Marika.
Yeah, real quick update on the One Stop for Community Growth grant application. We started out with, the town started out with submitting 4 potential projects during the expression of interest phase. We received feedback, and basically there were 3 projects that were, eligible to be submitted. In the end, it was decided that only the, I guess the EDC proposed business corridor study, zoning and planning project would move forward and be submitted as a full application for this round due to several factors, but some of the other projects were just not ready due to the fact that we can only submit 1 planning and zoning project per town. So anyway, so I worked on that and submitted all the information to Vanessa on Wednesday. I also reached out to MAPC, CMRPC, Judy Barrett, and to other consultants that were referred to me to come up with a kind of a project scope and a budget, which MAPC provided to me, which was great. So I could include that in the application. Yesterday, Vanessa uploaded everything in the portal. Marty Healy kind of went through the whole text, and I know John, you looked at it too, and I think it was sent off. So now we just need to do this till November, and hopefully we'll be successful.
Marika, you did an amazing job on that, by the way.
Thank you.
I can't thank you enough. I don't know if anybody saw the full application, but Marika did an incredible amount of work on that. And,
Yes.
it was a great application, and I'm very hopeful that it goes through. We can get some more money.
So, I mean, it was great. I think it was very helpful that we actually did a lot of the work and the research. I referred the various studies that were done in the past, the ADSET study, basically outlining Southborough's hurdles and basically strengths and weaknesses. We did, because we had all the business meetings with the business community, with real estate owners, we kind of, pinpointed all the hurdles that needed to be addressed. So I think, that was very, very helpful in putting this whole thing together. And I think one of the questions was, what are you going to do until November to kind of work on this project? Like, how are you going to sustain this initiative? So I think we need to just keep talking to businesses, which hopefully will be easier now that the economic situation is improving, or maybe people will be back in the office, so we can have face-to-face meetings, and basically continue our priority that we set out earlier this year to focus on Route 9. That's I think great. That was helpful. Any questions regarding that topic?
Marika, do you think we could set up a meeting with Ken's?
Yes, we can.
Because I'd like to talk to them, because I got stuck again on Route 9 with the truck trying to do the U-turn there, and I'd like to hear what their opinion on it is and what they would want to be able to do if we could change anything on traffic patterns, because for them to they can only take a right turn into their building, so they have to come down either to Route 85 and try to do the turnaround, or do the U-turn at Middle Road, and it's a cluster. It's when they try to make the U-turn and they get stuck and they take up the whole thing, or when they're trying to get out. The other day there was somebody that couldn't get, there was a truck that couldn't make it all the way down to the off ramp to get on Route 9, so it blocked up traffic all the way past the transfer station while he was stuck there for a little bit. So there's got to be, I think that's a hurdle that I'd love to hear their opinion on.
So maybe just to remind everyone, in the end, what was asked in the grant application was for a review of the current zoning of all the properties or the lots along Route 9, which currently include several different districts. So it's business highway, industrial, some of it is business village. So to have a look at that and to come up with either one new district or see how we can update that. That's one part. And I think just as a side note, but an important one, I've asked, I guess I'll ask Vanessa today as well, or maybe on Monday, to send me the full application that was uploaded, so we can share it with Board of Selectmen, of course, but also with the Planning Board. I think it's crucial to keep them informed from very early beginning, because it's a zoning planning project. The other part of the project is a look at traffic patterns. So not so much counting traffic, but see how we can improve on the traffic patterns, so people can more easily access businesses, restaurants along Route 9, and exactly maybe solve the problem that you just mentioned, John. And the third part of this is to look at specific economic development tools that would be appropriate for Southborough and could increase our competitiveness as we are competing with our neighbors. So that's like kind of a 3-part project that we applied for.
I had a question. I'm not sure if this is the venue for it, but we had originally, as a town, tried to move forward with several projects, and I think through discussions and review, we moved forward with a smaller number, and I just don't know what the vetting process was or what the discussion process was, while some were either discounted or postponed.
So we submitted the 4 projects. We received feedback from the state. Then there was a stakeholder meeting. So there was the planning department, members of Board of Selectmen, the town administrator, Mark Purple, Vanessa Hale, and members of various committees, so EDC, ShopC, who were part of that discussion to see how to move forward with the full grant application. Actually, it was more about how we were going to basically get all this information together and who was going to be responsible for writing it. But during that discussion, it was clear that, for instance, the Route 9 wastewater study, which was initially part of this bigger project, had to be split because it was a different category. It would fall into the kind of infrastructure category.
Right.
Then there was the transit overlay study, which was pursued by ShopC and planning department with the help of, I should say, Sarah and Karina. That was a contender, but we could only submit one zoning planning program. One town can only receive one project per category. So it was decided that we would go with the Route 9 business corridor because they expect some federal funding in the near future that could address and pay for the overlay mixed, affordable housing, transit overlay district. So that's not off the table, but it's just kind of, it was determined that, that would be able to be funded that way. And I think it was just through that discussion, I don't know if there was a formal vote on it. I know the Mark Purple updated the Board of Selectmen on it, but that was kind of the process. If that answers your question.
Partially, but thank you.
What part of your question wasn't answered?
Well, I recall part of that there were certain categories that that certain projects fell into, which I thought at first I was like, oh, this is a bummer because we're gonna have to compete internally in our own town for certain things. But it worked out well in the sense that, hey, it looks like we can actually intentionally parse out different projects for different categories. And I was hoping that all of the ones that selfishly that EDC wanted to move forward were going to be selected, but it just turns out that after I saw that they were going to get parsed out, and then we learned that not all the ones we wanted to. So I was just that discussion process, or it looks like they weren't a fit at this time. So I never saw that part. That was the problem.
But in the end, Alan,
phase 2 of downtown, the bylaw hadn't passed yet, so that's why the state said that couldn't be put in. Some of our other asks, they just needed to be shovel ready, or they were competing against the other things. It was pretty much it. But yeah, it would have been nice to get them all in until once we got the feedback back from the state. Yep. And then, everybody pretty much said what they thought the priorities were at the meeting, and then the selectmen and town administrator were the ones that decided.
But Alan, just to, so the EDC, I guess, submitted 3 different projects.
Mhm.
I mean, if you split them out, there's a Route 9 wastewater project, the zoning project for, business corridor, and then phase 2 of the downtown. I guess phase 2 downtown makes sense, and I think we're still working on that. So I mean, it's maybe at the next round we could apply for that. But it's important that we show the state we received grant money, that we kind of do something and implement it, right? So that's why it's another very important thing that this bylaw gets passed somehow, so we can show the state that you give us money, we do the work, we get things done, and then we can move forward. That's one. The good thing is that Claire found out that there's a new Eea grant this year, so that's why she applied for the infrastructure study for Route 9. So that has also, she submitted that, and I think she'll talk about it later. So basically, we have 2 grant applications that were submitted last week. So I think pretty productive for the EDC.
By the way, I just want to, the EEA grant that Claire found, not only did she find it, she applied for it, wrote it up, and got all the approval from the town in like 3 days. So I can't thank Claire enough for doing that. It was an unbelievable undertaking, and everything looked great on the application, and I'll let her talk about it in a bit. But everybody on this board, we all owe Claire a big round of applause for that one, because it was literally like 4 days. Yay, Claire. So thank you for that. We'll let her go to that. So anyway, sorry, didn't mean.
All right. So that was, if any other questions about the one stop, then I'll move on to my next.
When will we hear back on that? Do you know any more? When are we
November. Yeah. November. And then the thing was that the grant money is only till June 2022. So it's kind of like a short time frame, but we'll deal with that later. Yeah, November.
Okay.
All right, next is the micro enterprise grant program, still ongoing, and it will, I mean, as long as we have money left to award, it will be open till the end of this year. I think it's November 2021. Yeah, 2021. Currently, we've awarded $125,000 to micro enterprises, to local Southborough businesses, to assist them with emergency needs because of this pandemic. So we still have $43,000 left, and companies are eligible to ask for up to $25,000 at this point. So I'm still having meetings, just once a month. I'll have one on Wednesday, where we get regular updates on how it's going.
That's very good. Nice going there, Marika.
So I've actually listed out the companies in the newsletter. I've kind of given that update, and hopefully they'll give them some, promotion as well. I think there's still local companies, especially the small businesses, are still having a hard time. So I think I know Chris and I spoke about a few of them, how to help and promote and make sure that people know about them. That's another important thing. But all right, and next is I guess the EDC newsletter for May. They're just being rolled out at lightning speed. I just sent out April. I guess I was a bit behind, but
Gee, you had other stuff on your plate?
Sorry?
Why do you have other stuff on your plate, Mariah?
Just a few.
I have nothing else to do, like really. But no, I received a nice, the business survey came out, which is done every year annually by 495 Metro West Partnership. And I thought that was a great information for people to know, like how businesses view and expect to come back after the pandemic. So I've just included that in the newsletter. So, I mean, if we can, if you have any comments, edits, please, and otherwise maybe we can take a vote and I'll send it out.
Anybody have any comments or questions on it? Everybody have a chance to take a look at it?
Yeah, as soon as we can. I've got to leave in 15 minutes. So if
Yep.
you want to vote.
All right, so why don't we take a vote on that now then? Do I have a motion to accept the newsletter as written for distribution?
I so move.
Okay.
Second that.
And second by Alan. All right, I'm going to do a roll call vote. I'm going to call it as I see on the screen. Michael?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Julie's back. Julie?
Yep.
And Rob? He's on a
He's on a call.
So myself, yes. So we'll call it passes 6-4, and we'll call Rob because he's still here, but an abstain. All right. Now pass to Marika and send that. Hey, real quick, Marika, the tents and stuff from I see that Ola and Tommaso's have their tent out. What about New York Bagel? Are they still using the tent? I didn't see it in the heaters. Are those outside, inside? Have we followed up with
I
them?
haven't. They still have the tents and the heaters,
Okay.
but I haven't been around.
All right.
Yeah. I'll check
Somebody
in with
told
them.
me that the fire department said you can't use the heaters because it's a fire hazard or something.
Well, you can't.
Inside the
You
tent.
can't use the propane heaters inside the tents, and they were notified of that. Tommaso and Ola were provided with electric. Oh no, actually, Ola, I still have electric heaters, but Tommaso has 2 electric heaters that we provided that are allowed inside the tent.
And the gas heaters, New York Bagel didn't have under the tent. They just had outside by
Yeah.
the tables.
Yeah.
Great job.
Real
Thank
quick, I
you.
just typed up an email of asking planning if they're going to be posting the documents to be discussed on Monday, and also that the BOS posted a joint meeting, but planning did not list the meeting as a joint meeting. Will they? Is that correct information, Claire?
Yeah, it is, except that they can't, I don't think now, because the 48 hours has expired, so they can't.
You can amend an agenda up
Oh,
to 24 hours, I believe. So
Yeah. I mean, I just think that everybody should have, the residents who want to participate should know, should have the scorecard.
Yeah. All right, that's all from me as an update.
Great. So the newsletter's passed. All right, Claire, you're up. Wastewater engineering study status.
Okay, so our Weston Sampson engineer was here in the middle of May. Paul and I met with them. We went through their site planning. We did a drive around. We took a look at some areas. Interestingly enough, I saw where the stump dump was, and also that the wastewater treatment facility that St. Mark's has for their whole campus looks like a house. If you haven't seen it, it's off of School Street, and that's going to be one of the things that he's looking at too. So the next steps, which are under the current contract, will be to Weston Sampson will finalize their site screening, review the options with the existing treatment facilities in terms of tying in, develop what the next level of costs are, and define the next phase of the study. So in other words, with money that is left over from the first grant that we can still use, they will look at a pump station preliminary design and drawings, and then work on the preliminary costs, and we can discuss funding grants for how to work this into the next phase of, for example, the one-stop program. So that covers us through the end of this June. Questions on that part?
I don't have a question. I just want to make a mention. I don't know who all knows this, but there's another private pump house facility that looks like a house, if we ever wanted to get a sense of what that looks like elsewhere in Southborough. The Wedgwood Wildwood development has one of those. So if we're considering that and wanted to make it look discreet, not make it look like an eyesore, that's another option to look at and consider.
Thanks for bringing that up, because that was another one that Paul Pazinski had told me about.
Yep.
So, you just have to make sure you knock on the right door.
Well, yeah, I used to live in that development, and I think I was talking to my neighbors at one point. They're like, someone was saying, who lives there? I'm like, that's not a residence. Like, what? Like, it was that innocuous that someone
Right.
actually thought a person lived there. So I'm like,
Exactly.
I wouldn't go in there, but
No,
yeah,
Paul doesn't recommend it either.
So we toured one in Weston. They have a hydroponic garden on top of, and it was pretty neat. There was very little. It wasn't like, even going in, it didn't smell like a wastewater treatment plant. Some of the ones they have now, even you don't even need a house on top of. It can be completely underground.
Well, supposedly the one over at Wedgwood, when you walk in, you can tell that nobody lives there. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I've been by that one a bunch walking the dogs, and you'd never know it outside of it.
Right, exactly. Just don't open the door or the windows. Okay, so the next thing is the sixth quarter wrap up for the report for the rest of that money, which will include the zoning. And I sent off a letter to Lisa yesterday saying that it's important that all of the billing for Adam Costa and Judy Barrett be done by the end of June so that their money can get funded correctly. The second EEA grant, which is the one that I just wrote now, and also got to realize Marika was a help. We actually found this through an email that had come from Kurt Gardner through Carla. Kurt Gardner is the state guy. And that usually, last time, 2 years ago when we found out about that was in September that we found out about that one, timing wise. So the one thing that I just want to tell you about that is it was written to be built off of the work that had been done with the 1981 study, sewer study that was done by SEA consultants. While it seems that that's a long time ago, I checked it with Paul Pazinski, and there's a lot that does not change. So even though it seems like it's a long time ago, there's a lot of good work on there that the next consultant could work off of in terms of defining what they call decentralized wastewater systems. So if you want to know the new buzzword in wastewater, it is decentralized. Questions on anything with that? Okay, thanks guys.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump down to administrative business just because I know people need to leave, and I just want to vote on the May 20th minutes, just in case anybody needs to bounce if we lose a quorum or anything. So has everybody had a chance to take a look at the minutes from May 20th?
Yep.
Does anybody want to make a motion to accept?
I so move that we pass the minutes.
Okay.
Second
by Alan, thank you.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm only saying this because I think it might get confusing. I'm listed as MM, and I think throughout and Marike doesn't have little initials, but I think
good idea.
Throughout she's listed as commenting. Not that I don't want to take credit for her work. But, I
used MM for you, and I used Marika for Marika.
But unless you had, is that written as such as MM equals, you know what I mean? Could you?
Yeah, at the beginning of the minutes.
It does say that MM is.
Calls me MM and then it calls Marike, but then throughout, I know I don't talk this much. There's quite a few MMs.
If we could just change that, Claire.
Okay, all right, yep, no problem.
Thank you.
So do we have to withdraw the motion then?
What's that?
Do we have to withdraw the motion, or do we have to make another motion to accept as amended, or as will be amended?
Both. So Chris, you going to withdraw your motion?
Yes, I withdraw the motion and resubmit with the amendment suggested.
Do I have a second?
I second Chris's new motion.
Perfect. All right, it's a roll call as I see it. Michael?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Robert?
Yep.
Chris?
Yes.
And I think Julie had to bounce. And I'm going to abstain because I was not there.
Hey, I just want to jump in and say, I think it's great that a couple of you are spotting some, even though they seem minor corrections, it's very important for the system and for us to get things approved. And I think it's great that people are being very attentive to some of the details. Thank you.
It's like our real jobs, right? So,
Yeah.
use that a lot.
All right. So now back to discussion. So the permanent outdoor dining, initially I thought that the selectmen had extended it 6 months past the lifting of the emergency order, but I guess it was only 60 days. So by the state, the governor allowed 60 days, and I don't think the towns were able to. I'm going to check into it more, but I'd like to try to figure out a way to keep the outdoor dining. It's only the 2 restaurants that really capitalized on it, which is Ola and Tommaso's, because New York Bagel already had set up, and none of the other restaurants really wanted to do anything. And the biggest problem there was just parking issues, I think, to get the special permit to do that and the liquor license outside. So I don't know what everybody else's thoughts are, but I think that would be a great thing if those restaurants wanted to keep it, that we should try to help them to make it a permanent thing, and maybe talk to the landlord, see if he's amenable to it, talk to the restaurants, see if they are, and then figure out who we need to talk to in town to try to keep it going. Anybody's thoughts or comments on that?
I think that's a great idea. The one other thing, and this ties back into zoning a little bit, is I'm not sure what the parking regulations are for restaurants. I know at least on Hola and Tommaso, where my wife and I have gone, eating out on asphalt is not the most comfortable. It's not set up. It's not really that super attractive. If there is a lessening in the parking requirements for restaurants, perhaps some of those could transition from dedicated parking spots to, outdoor patio or pavers, to kind of make that more of a permanent thing without having to keep those parking spaces in order to meet the regulations of zoning. So I'm not sure if that's something we want to explore, because I know that even if it weren't the pandemic, eating outside in the spring and the fall, maybe not in the dead of summer, is actually quite enjoyable. So anything we could do to help them, I think would be great.
Yeah, I think there's a certain amount. I think parking was an issue there, and then I remember that he opened up the parking lot to his industrial building there, and that was a whole other cluster of problems. So I think I'll try to find out who we need to talk to and what we need to do, and then see if the zoning, the planning, if we could get them to park over in there, and then figure out if we could, talk to the owner of the building to see if he'd be interested in patio or space or anything like that. So I think it's a good idea, Rob.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
John, can I say something? Sorry.
I said, please,
so I think Rob made some good points that, we should try to, I will also reach out to people at Townhouse, see what the process would be to be able to convert this to permanent outdoor dining. I know the state is currently considering that towns would, by special permit, would allow restaurants to continue the outdoor dining option until I think it was November, so for the next 6 months instead of 60 days. So I'm keeping an eye out on that. It hasn't been approved yet, but if it does, then I guess my next question would be what's the process for the town to be able to get that done.
I don't know. Okay. Any more on that? All right. So, election of committee officers and renewal of terms. We're not going to be voting on that just because we only have one more meeting before everybody's term. I believe it was Suzanne, Michael, and Rob. Your terms are up June 30th. I do know of one person that will not be returning, and I'd like to say thank you, Suzanne, for all your time and efforts in the committee over the last few years. You've been great, and we're going to miss you. So thank you for being part of it. And I hope you come to the 17th, and I'd like to buy you a beer sometime.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm still here.
What's that?
I said I'm still around to tap into. I just need to take a mental break from life for a little bit.
I hear you. It's been an interesting year, but I just wanted to thank you for volunteering all this time and your expertise and everything. And don't worry, I'm not shy to reach out to you, even if you're not on committee. I do that to everybody. So, but if anybody else is having thoughts of not, or if you're definitely coming back, if you could let me know in the next few weeks. We have one person submitted an interest to join the committee. His name was Berger. I believe he's applied before, and Marika knows him from her kid's soccer. So hopefully he'll still be interested. And that's about that. And then after we have, like, we know who's going to be on the board and committee in July, will be election of committee officers. I've been on this board now for 4 years. I've chaired it, at least 2 on and off, as well as been vice chair. My bandwidth, unfortunately, right now for I don't know how long, I will not be able to continue to be chair. So if anybody has any thoughts on it, want to talk to me about it, I think it would be great. I will be a very active part and do whatever I can behind, but I will not be able to continue on as chair. So if somebody else could think about whether they want to do it, it's more administrative. It's not all that, it's not that difficult or time consuming unless you really want it to be. Unfortunately, well, actually what happens is you don't want it to be, and then you get obsessed, and then there's groups for it and stuff. But anyway, so we could just think about that for in July. I'd appreciate it. And then I think that's it. And then Marika had sent out a thing about next meetings for the summertime. I don't know if anybody had seen that for a potential like June 17th, July 2nd. I think we should definitely go back to a summer schedule. And I think we could meet like once a month unless we needed to add meetings. July 2nd, I know that's a holiday weekend. I'm thinking nobody will be there for that one. So that one I don't think we'll do. And I know other people, myself, it's easier for the evening meetings. And I think other people have said that as well. I don't know if that's harder or easier on people to do the evenings instead of the Friday mornings. But we can talk about that now or at the next meeting if anybody wants to. Anybody have a preferred time, days or mornings, evenings?
I have a slight preference for evenings. I know no one likes to wreck their evenings, but during the day is tough as a person who has to charge billable time and billable hours to places. Middle of the work days or workday mornings are a bit challenging, but can make it work. But if we're taking preferences, my preference is the evening. How
about you, Rob?
I agree with Alan. As witnessed this morning, I had a work call come in that I needed to do, and I couldn't participate as much. It's easier in the evenings.
I agree myself. I'm an evening person myself. How about you, Michael? Evenings or mornings?
I'll defer to whoever's got a preference.
Okay. And then Suzanne, you don't matter anymore. No, I'm kidding.
No. Wow, I'm out.
How fast the tide turns.
Let the body cool.
Right. And Chris, how about you? Would evenings be okay for you?
Yeah, thank you.
And then, I know they start out as mornings for everybody, and then we started alternating morning and evening. I just think evenings it's easier for the public to attend, and I know initially some of these meetings when I first got on would go like 2 hours plus, and I think we've streamlined them down to an hour, just about an hour. So I think the evenings would be okay, but we'll talk about that. So how about we do, you want to just do the Thursday, the 17th, and then the one after that, maybe July 15th? 7:30.
Yeah, why don't I cross out all the morning meetings on Fridays?
And then if
we're
we
left
need
with
any
all
for
the-
if we need any for votes, we can always call an emergency meeting. We only need a few days. I could just send out a time if we needed anything like extra meetings in between to vote on either the bylaw or anything like that.
And do we want to keep it at 7:30 or do we want to make it 7 or?
Whatever's easiest for everybody. 7's fine for me. I know my kids are grown and gone, so I defer to everybody else who has to put their kids to bed or do whatever.
They don't go to bed at 7:30.
I don't know.
Wishful thinking.
Are there kids? I don't have any kids. Are there kids sports during the summertime that could conflict? I think we've gone to the 7:30 because, soccer or
Baseball.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I don't know summer schedules for kids.
7:30 will be fine then for now. And if anything's changed, we can always adjust it if needed. So we'll keep them at 7:30 for now. Marika, is that okay?
Yeah, I'll send out a schedule with the next, I guess at the next meeting. And we can.
Perfect. And then,
If I might, one more question. Are we assuming that these are all going to be Zoom as well, as opposed to in person?
I think for now we have to, because I think the
Yeah.
Board of Selectmen meeting was the trial to see what in person was going to be like. I think we have to wait to the result of that. I suspect that we're probably going to go back to in person, but we don't know for sure.
Yeah.
I think the governor is actually pushing to be able to keep the Zoom meetings because they were much more successful than he thought. I like the Zoom meeting because it's recorded and more people can view it that may not be in the public that may not be able to come. And if they're in person, I'd like to reach out to Sam and have them video them because I think the more people know, the better. Personally.
Yeah, I like the Zooms. Let's say you have and are going for a permit and you're fifth on the agenda, you can have the Zoom in the background and do work as opposed to sitting through a 2-hour meeting until you get to your thing. So I think from a permitting standpoint, it makes sense. So if permitting's going to do it, we should do the same thing.
I wholeheartedly agree. Part of my one of my work requirements for the past 14, 15 months has been helping out municipalities do this. And the overwhelming response is that the hybrid option is much preferred. It's not universal, but it's preferred for all the reasons you said. And it just better accessibility, broader reach, and those kinds of things. So. John,
Sorry,
you're muted.
I was muted. Anything else on that schedule, or do we have any unfinished business and new business to discuss? Nothing? Then I know people need to bounce at 9:30. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of adjournment? I'm going to call as I see it on the screen. Michael,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Chris.
Look, if we're going to be fair about that, I want that cat to indicate what his preference is.
Cat gets a vote.
Meow, meow.
All right. Kat says adjourn. Chris
Yes.
and myself, aye. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate it. And thank you for all you do. And I will see you on the 17th.
Thank you.
I'll be there Monday if anybody comes. And I'll let you know if I hear anything else about what we can and can't discuss.